My guest on today's show is the Wired Educator Kelly Croy, an English teacher from the great state of Ohio, and the new podcaster on the Wired Educator podcast. Kelly, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Now, you are a Google certified teacher. You're an Apple distinguished educator, and now you're officially a podcaster. What made you go for the trifecta?
I've always been interested in podcasting. I used to do some podcasting just within my own district, not, on a broadcasting situation, but making podcasts with my students, their tests, trying to help special ed departments with helping the learners become more independent. And I like listening to podcasts. Listening to your show and seeing all the things that you're doing, I finally decided to take the leap and listen to myself talk. I don't know if I have any other listeners, but it's been a lot of fun. So.
And talk to us a little bit about your show. You have elected to put your show on iTunes, and what other platforms can we find you?
Primarily just iTunes. Mm-hmm. I have it on SoundCloud. I have like one episode or two on SoundCloud. I'm just kind of exploring. I'm kind of learning as I go, which is a lot different for me because usually I like to read and learn everything about whatever it is I'm going to do. This it's really fun to do a podcast, and so I kind of learn from my mistakes. I haven't bought an expensive microphone yet. I want it to look good. I want it to sound good. I want it to be of value to people, but I'm just kind of taking it slow and kind of learning and not trying to invest a ton of money into it right off the bat. My approach to it is just to try to help educators. Try to get teacher stories out there.
We always take a moment out of all of these interviews to ask the question, can you podcast for free? And I'm finding that the answer in almost every case is, yeah. You don't need to buy tons of equipment. What kind of things are you doing? How are you recording your shows?
Well, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, besides TeacherCast, of course, is Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn. Are you familiar with that show?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I followed basically Pat's advice on how to do podcasts. And I use, pardon me if I don't pronounce some of the websites correctly, but I decided I wanted to go primarily on iTunes, that I wanted it to be distributed from my website. I wanted the podcast to bring people into my website and my website to bring people into my podcast. I decided I wanted to be just audio. I don't do any video podcasting whatsoever. And I really wanted to go with a radio sound to it. And I use Pat Flynn's Smart podcast player on my website, which I think gives it a really good look. And it is able to allow listeners to find the other shows. I love how it puts the show notes up. And I host it on Libsyn. I think do you do that as well, or you use Google Hangouts for about everything?
Oh, absolutely. We record everything on Google Hangouts, and then we also put the audio up on Libsyn. And so I actually have it my show's hosted on two different locations.
Okay.
And Libsyn is absolutely a great place to host your podcast, and you can get it really, really cheaply too.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to do as well. I just followed some instructions, yours as well, and I found using Libsyn to be very easy to do. Sometimes I have to go in and tweak some things to make it look right. And I also use a service called Auphonic, Auphonic. I think I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of levels out the sound and cleans it up for me automatically. So, and it is a paid service.
So let's take a look at what you got here. Of course, if you're interested in learning more about Kelly and his website, you can go over to wirededucator.com. Now, before I ask you, what is a Wired Educator? You created this whole thing using WordPress, correct?
Correct, yeah. I like WordPress. I was a big fan of Michael Hyatt. I use a Michael Hyatt theme. It's tweaked a little bit. I had a gentleman go in and tweak it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, that's basically how I'm rolling. Yeah.
And it's very, very clean. Are there any plugins? I know you were talking about the podcast player, but since we have a lot of people who are listening to this show who are getting into WordPress, this is self-hosted, right? So this is WordPress.org, as they call it. Are there any plugins that you would recommend, maybe inside or outside the podcasting world here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Jeff, that's something I want to explore more with you. I know you know these plugins very, very well. I can see a lot of benefit to it. You know, using Lips, and you can go in and you can see your traffic and things like that. And it's very interesting to see what episodes are getting played the most and things like that. And so I do want to explore plugins more. I run a pretty stripped down website. I don't employ a lot of plugins. I just purchased an opt-in plugin to do like a drop-down plugin. I'd like to start collecting some teacher emails to send out some reminders of things like that.
Sure.
But I don't have it employed yet. You had recommended Pretty Links, and unfortunately, I have not successfully got that going yet. But I'm hopefully work with you, and I'll get that done. There's a couple others that I want to do, but I don't know. I like a pretty simple website. I like a pretty clean website. I think I've got a good look going. The biggest hurdle I've seen with podcasting and blogging, which is completely opposite to Jeff Bradbury, is being consistent. You know, anybody can go on a diet for a day or for a week or maybe even a month, but to be consistent about that discipline of dieting or weightlifting or running and podcasting and writing, that is a real strength, and that's something that you do incredibly well. I don't think anybody, realizes how much work can go into one blog post or one podcast, let alone to do that consistently, week in, week out, day in, day out. And sometimes I just shake my head in amazement at how much you produce, and it's all quality, it's all great, and you're really promoting other people, and I applaud you for that.
Well,
that's the main thing I'm working on right now is consistency.
Thank you for saying that, and I'll tell you what the secret is. You have to start breeding your own editing crew, and that's what the Edger triplets are certainly for.
Yeah.
I want to also showcase one other thing here, and by the way, I love the theme on your site. Again, wirededucator.com. At the bottom, you've got this thing that says "Along Came a Leader." What is that, Kelly?
Okay, so thank you, Jeff. For many years, I've always wanted to write a book, and I do get to travel quite a bit and speak and do presentations. And one of the topics that I'm probably invited the most to speak on is leadership. And it's in my book. I talk about the problematic loop of leadership, and it's that everybody deems that it's important. Everybody knows that we need and want leaders, but no one's really willing to invest the time or really knows what to do to produce leaders. And so I've talked to parents, I've talked to corporations, I've talked with churches, I've talked and worked with schools on how do we get leadership to be a topic of discussion, and how do we really get young men and women to become leaders. And so I've collected my ideas, and I've written a book, Along Came a Leader, and you can order a soft copy on Amazon or a Kindle version. And you can also go to alongcamealeader.com, which is my personal website, and order one if you'd like an autographed one. But anyways, in it, I just kind of spell out 6 primary elements of leadership, some lessons I've learned in life through scouting, through working with other educators, life experiences, coaching, you name it, and offering that up to people to try to help them create leaders. It is something that we need to talk about. And I'd just like to end my little plug with Along Came a Leader. Leadership is the solution to everything. If you have a problem within your family, the solution is leadership. If you have a problem within your business, the solution is leadership. If you have a problem in your school, bullying, for instance, the answer is leadership. And so whether you use this book or another speaker, we've really got to make this more than just saying it's important. What are we going to do about it? And we have to give young men and women opportunities to lead.
So I have to ask you this question here because you brought it up, and I want to get back into the podcasting in a couple seconds here. But what leadership qualities have you learned from scouting?
Yeah, well, I'm very proud to say that I was an Eagle Scout, or I am an Eagle Scout. Even though a lot of people think scouting, I think if you're not in scouting, I don't think you understand it. I placed my Eagle Scout rank right up there with my college degree, with my work experience. Becoming an Eagle Scout is, in my opinion, truly living the laws of scouting. It's to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, and reverent. To wake up with a motto each day, to do your best, to really focus on serving God and country and family, to love your country. It's just an embodiment to me what it means to be an American citizen and to want to become a better person. And scouting is about goal setting. It's about helping other people, and that's why scouting is the reason I got into education, and education is the reason I got into speaking, and speaking is the reason I got into writing a book. And so they all kind of work together. I think scouting could be one of our greatest and most unused resources in America today. It was a wonderful program for me, and I wish it was more popular. But you know, in it, I point out 6 major areas, and they're very simple, but we need to work at them each day. One's communication, to becoming a better communicator. Leaders need to communicate clearly. To be an authentic leader. When we see a leader screw up, for lack of a better word, it's always a lack of authenticity. Wisdom. You know, people, I don't think they believe wisdom is obtainable, or you only acquire it when you're really old. Well, you need to read, you need to listen to podcasts, you need to work at acquiring wisdom, having a strong vision. You know, working with Google and Apple, I've really, really learned the importance of having a vision and working towards that. And one of the biggest ones I've learned from sports is tenacity. And that's something I think you possess very well, Jeff, the ability to not give up, to pursue a goal until you achieved it. And I know I left one out there, but you know, it all needs to be wrapped up in a nice bundle of action. You've got to take action. And I've never been one to sit on the couch, and I know you're not either. And I just really think leadership's important. Writing this book is not about me trying to promote myself or a way to make money or something. It's something I really believe in, and it's a way I'd like to give back.
You know, we've talked about scouting a lot on other episodes, and even when I had a chance to meet you personally, we've talked about it. My favorite one out of all these scouting oaths, I believe, is do a good podcast daily. And I think if we all can keep that motto, we'll certainly be in there. Let's talk a little bit about your show. We talked a little bit about the website. We talked a little bit about recording it. How do you prepare for a show like this? You've only done 12 episodes, and, you know, you've broken the first hurdle, right? I don't know all the statistics, but I have talked to the people at Lipson and Blueberry, and they said, look, if you get past episode 8, you've got a certain percentage of being a podcaster. And then if you can get past episode 22, then they see another drop in, you know, another benchmark. Right. So you've gotten through that first little hurdle. What are you doing differently now that you may not have done the first couple episodes? What have you learned here?
Like a lot of things that I do, I find podcasts or blogs that I really admire, and I try to incorporate some of their qualities, but at the same time giving it some of my own unique twists and turns. And so obviously if you listen to my podcast, you'll see a heavy influence of Pat Flynn. I really like his intro and outro, and so I went to Fiverr and I found a guy to make my own intro and outro, and I really only invested like $5 or $10. It's great. If you haven't used Fiverr.com, jump on it. It's a great way to get some cheap graphics and voice talents and all sorts of different things. But my real belief is I don't prepare a lot for the podcast. What I do is I try to find people that I want to meet and talk with. And I just try to have a conversation. I sketch out a few questions in my journal. I use a moleskin journal for that. I kind of take notes. I really like that it's just audio. I think that takes a lot of pressure off of the guests. And people, I think, approaching it differently. I know we're doing a video podcast now, but I think, as a teacher, my vision was I envisioned teachers to be listening to my podcast while they were grading papers or while they're commuting to work or while they're eating their lunch in their room or whatever it is. And so it's just something like a background conversation that they could listen to. And so I really see my podcast, 90% of it's going to be conversations with interesting educators that you should really network with. And I'm really proud of who I've had on. We still good?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other 10% is going to be some episodes of me sharing some things that I've learned. And I really kind of want to aim it. I've kind of got, as I get in the later years, I'm going to start my 25th year of teaching. I'm kind of looking at education a little bit differently. I've got a couple of projects in the works, and one of them I really think is going to help a lot of teachers down the road. So I'm anxious to unveil that. And I'm going to do it like my book, Along Came a Leader. A lot of that were originally blog posts on my kellycroy.com website.
Nice.
And I really see that Wired Educator, the 10% that I'm going to do of me talking and things like that, is really going to be future content for a project that I'm working on for education. And I'm excited to get that going.
What is a Wired Educator, Kelly?
What is a Wired Educator? Well, you are one. And to me, a Wired Educator is kind of like a Jedi. They are knowledgeable in the ways of leather-bound books, yet they also can wield a gadget of this generation. A Wired Educator is someone who first, above all, has a love and passion for education. And they're in education because they love students, and they also love to create. But there is that wired part, and that wired part is kind of a play on words. Part of it is just being wired with energy to want to affect a change within the world. And the other part really is a technological side. I really think technology has a great draw to students in several ways. One, it's just cool, right? We just want to mess around with things and play with it. But second, it is such a liberating tool for all people, but especially students, to express themselves in video, in words, in creation of all sorts of things that they could never do before. And so my teaching now is about creating a class that I would want to be in. My podcasts and my writing on my blogs are about creating things that I would want to read and watch. And so a Wired Educator is someone who wants to do those sort of things.
I listened to your first couple episodes, and then I listened to some of the middle episodes, and I've listened to your last few episodes, and you've come such a long way with your show. It really, really is an amazing show. And if you haven't checked out the Wired Educator podcast, certainly go over to wirededucator.com. You can follow Kelly on Twitter @WiredEducator, and certainly subscribe to his show. When you do, head on over to iTunes and give him a nice rating and review. Podcasters love that stuff. Kelly, before I let you go, I want to let you in on a little secret here. We have a little bit of a game show that we play with all of our guests right before we let them off the hook here.
Oh, no.
We have 5 questions to stump any educator, and would you be interested in playing what we are? I don't have a title for it yet. I'm still calling it the Edu 5, but we'll find an official title. If you're listening out there and you want to help title this thing, please let us know. But Kelly, would you be interested in taking the Edu 5?
Wow, I want to say no, but I love to watch Jimmy Fallon, so let's play. Has anyone missed all 5?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
We could have a first here tonight. Okay, go ahead.
Number 1, what is your favorite Twitter or hashtag?
Twitter. My favorite hashtag is, oh boy, I'm going to get it wrong. The iBooks, the weekly iBooks hack, or iBooks.
Yes.
Yeah, iBooks chat. All right, that's it.
Number 2, favorite educational tool.
Favorite educational tool. Boy, I'm going to old school this one. I'm going to fool everybody. I like the document camera.
Really?
I like taking students' work and putting it on in front and showing everybody.
Best advice you've ever been given as a podcaster, and this is not a loaded question.
Best advice, consistency. Don't. I've already broken it, but they say not to miss a week of publishing.
Number 4, what do you hope your listeners take away from your show?
I hope they leave being inspired to do something different in their classroom.
And number 5, and this has been the one that's been stumping everybody. So, what is the best teachable moment you've ever had?
I'm just going to throw one out. So when the iPod Touch first came out, I had a young lady who was in the hospital. She had cancer, and she could not be at school. And so we gave her one of the iPod Touches to take into the hospital. And she was, for less educational reasons, but more for social reasons, she was able to visit the classroom using the video camera. She was able to chat with her friends. She was from a very low-income family, and I'll always remember that moment. That was a great equalizer for her. And she's a cancer survivor, too. So
That sounds like a story an Eagle Scout would share.
Thanks.
Kelly, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Continued success with your show. If you are interested in learning more about Kelly, of course, you can go over to wirededucator.com, or if you check out TeacherCast, I believe this is like the third or fourth show you've been on. There's plenty of Kelly Croy over there. Your website looks great. Your podcast sounds amazing. Certainly check them out. Kelly, where else can we find you if we're looking for you in the social sphere?
Sure. So I host another website, kellycroy.com, and that's primarily for my speaking and my writing. And I have a Facebook page. It's Facebook / I think it's Chalk Art, and I'm pretty easy to find. Just Google me, and I really like to interact with people, just like you, Jeff. I like to help people with projects they're working on. I love to collaborate with other teachers. And before you let me go, I just want to thank you for inspiring me and other educators. And thanks for having me on tonight.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for being here. We'll be back more with educational podcasting today.
National Podcast Day is September 30th. But what is National Podcast Day? It's pretty simple, and you can help spread the word. National Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide through public engagement. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved with National Podcast Day? It's easy. Head over to nationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. But ultimately, these options are endless. Remember, September 30th, nationalpodcastday.com, and let's start the conversation.